Welcome to the Space Marketing Podcast, where we look at marketing principles, strategies, and tactics through the lens of space. Hi, I am your host, Izzy, and this year we're going to shake things up a bit. We will meet space industry professionals that focus on promoting their companies and space. So on this episode, we will meet space marketing professional on the agency side, Melody Tholstrup with My Size Marketing. So lift off in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Space Marketing Podcast. Information relating to our discussion today and links to the video version can be found in the episode show notes on spacemarketingpodcast.com. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. It will help more people reach beyond the atmosphere. Information in this episode is for entertainment and information only. Please consult a professional for your specific situation. As we have journeyed our way through the space marketing books and podcasts, I have seen the need for the space industry to have a voice. It is critical for any business to let their audience know that they exist, and we need to be telling the inspiring story of the space industry. This voice is created by marketing professionals, and I have met some amazing space marketing professionals that are doing a wonderful job. In my book, Space Marketing, Competing for the New Commercial Space Industry, I introduce marketing through the lens of space. I walk through what it is and how to use it to build your brand and to establish relationships with your audience or customers, whatever they may be. I conclude the book with how to find talent. We look at in-house versus partnering with an agency for services. Today, we will talk to a marketing firm that works with the space companies. Do you need a big agency with a big price tag to help your company market your company? I got that better in another one. Okay, let's do that one again. Do you need a big agency with a big price tag to help your company market? No. There are many sizes of options, from a freelancer to a small firm that is just the right size. See what I did there? Marketing can be a tough thing to navigate. Finding the right person to lead you through this new and unfamiliar territory is the first step in growing your business. My next guest is a marketing professional, and we will touch on the challenges and successes of working within the space industry. And we will also discuss the significance of having a marketing professional as part of your company's team. So help me welcome my guest today, Melody Tholstrup with My Size Marketing. Melody, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Izzy. Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Oh, it has been a pleasure to get to know you as well. For the audience out there, we first connected on LinkedIn and met at SpaceCom in 2023. And we have a very similar journey to space. And it was not initially part of our career plan. So let's jump right into that and tell us how you became interested in space. What's your journey?
Well, so it is a long journey, and I won't go through all of it. But the bottom line is, I never intended at first, when I went through college, to even be in marketing. I knew I liked communications, but I actually had a theater background, and knew I liked to write, and knew I liked to be in front of people and speak to people and help people. And I got into retail just to pay bills right out of college, and that led me on a journey, and eventually into the marketing and advertising world, to get out of the retail hours and be with who would become my new husband, and spend more time with him. But what I loved about the marketing world is it really didn't matter what company or what industry you're working with. We were using, as I was learning from some wonderful mentors and ad agencies and publishing companies and internet news media websites, I was learning there were just so many tools to tell that story and to help those different businesses, from a small business, which is one of my passions, to a big company who still has to get their message across. And I moved to Huntsville actually with the retail job back in, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, and fell in love with the space program, because growing up in Alabama, though, I didn't know much about it, what was here. Once you get to Huntsville, you discover so many amazing people and so many amazing stories and the history. And so just as a community involvement person, I got to know more and more about our program, but had never worked on the front lines. And so a few years ago, I've had my own marketing firm since 2011. But I actually shared something on Facebook about helping a client with some marketing campaign and an event and just all the success and how much I love my job, and actually had a friend from college reach out to me, and she worked with a company who worked in the space industry and was a government contractor. And she said, I didn't know you did that, because I didn't really put that on my personal page. And so I said, well, she said, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help with marketing. We have a great company, but we still need the help getting that story out there, just like any other company. And I said, okay, well, sure, I can come talk to you about that. And it just turned into now going on 3 years, because at first I was apprehensive. I was like, oh, space government, that's for the big leagues, or that's for bigger companies or bigger firms, or you've got to be educated and experienced in that. But the more I got to know them and their struggles, again, the company was a great company. They were doing an excellent job, and the people within their circle knew they were excellent. But like even our own community didn't necessarily recognize their name, because they hadn't done a lot. And if they wanted to recruit new people, especially all the people coming to our area, or if they just wanted to have the community to know who they were, it was the same challenges I got with every other company I've ever worked with. So that became such a fun thing to not only get to use my skills and experience to help them in their marketing, but to get to go right up close and personal to the space industry, and to get to know people and meet people and talk to people and interview people and write about people that they were meeting, not only in Huntsville, but across the country. And then get to go to SpaceCom last year was just like the icing on the cake. And to meet you and to just hear all these really smart people and see Space Force right up, in NASA. And of course, we have some wonderful NASA people here in Huntsville, but what was wonderful was I'd gotten to a point in my career where everything I had learned I knew could help them, but I got to start a whole new part of my career at the same time. So,
yeah, chapter 3. And I want to go back a little bit about what you said about posting on your Facebook. And let's talk about how sometimes we're terrible about marketing ourselves. And yes. So let's go a little bit there on, the importance of marketing yourself and not being afraid to tell people what you do.
I actually got so, I've taught a lot of different workshops, as you and I've talked about this, and you have too, to small businesses, to organizations, to leadership groups. And one of my favorite things to do, and one I just taught recently, is about your personal brand. Right? We used to call that, that person's character before social media was a thing, to put your character out there, to put your choices, your opinions, your hobbies, your loves, your likes. And I did try to keep that separate, because I thought, well, nobody wants to hear about that except for people I'm targeting in my business world. And it's funny because I still am hesitant, only unless I think I'm helping another company. Like if I'm helping a client to say, on my personal Facebook page to say, oh, we had this great ribbon cutting, I'm so proud and excited for them, and it's all about them, but I get to be a portal to share that, then I don't have a problem with that. And I've done that a lot more. But what I've taught in my personal brand class is everything you do, the clothes you wear, the car you drive, everything you do reflects you and your personal brand. And that's not just as an owner of a company. That's if you want to rise up a corporate ladder, people are hiring and promoting people. And right. They're going to look at two different people with, very similar qualities, very similar skills and experience, and say, who do we want representing our company at this level? So I talk about, the charities you get involved with. Don't get involved in a charity just to be known, right? But to get involved in something that helps you, that you know you can help others, and that helps. And for example, I had a client I coached one time, and it was a husband-wife team, and the wife said, well, we really want to get the word out about us working with this project. And she said, my husband already donates a lot of money to this charity, but he does it anonymously. And I said, that's wonderful. I can appreciate that. In the Bible, it says do it in secret. But at the same time, I said, there's a way to take at least some of that you're giving, because they really want to support this charitable organization. And I said, when you give a face to that and you acknowledge that in your business, not only are you getting a little good PR for yourself, you're making your employees feel good. You're making your customers feel good about doing business with you. And obviously you're giving a lot more spotlight to that charity that they probably don't have the money and resources to give. And so I said, I just want people to think about that when they're out there, working with other companies, working with charities, doing things in their spare time. When your brand is about helping others, I don't care who you are or what industry you're in, if that's sincere, it's not a bad thing, right? It's not. And so when I do put that on my personal Facebook or social media or LinkedIn, it's not about me, but yeah, I benefit. But it's just like if I help somebody, I benefit from helping them because I've helped somebody get something, in their business or my neighbor or whatever. So I agree. It is a fine line, but if it's authentic and it's sincere and it's really about the other person or the other entity or the other company or organization, you're never going to be wrong. So.
Well, and I just want to let all the professionals out there know that this is not something that just you struggle with. I struggle with it too. I can't tell you how many times I've sat there and thought, okay, this would be a good thing to do, and then talked myself out of it because it was me. And so I have a conversation with myself, and I ask myself, would I do that for a customer? Would I do that for a client because it would be good for them? And if the answer is yes, then I have more arguments sometimes and still have, putting myself out there. But it is hard because, we're taught not to be vain. We're taught not to make it about us and be that
Especially
person.
Women.
Especially women. Yes. And
I think what you said, and you told me about teaching. When you teach, you're in front of people. You're being paid attention to, but you're giving knowledge and value. And a good teacher is one that everybody pays attention to. So if we're a good marketing person, people have to pay attention to us, and for a good reason, because you have so much expertise in what you do. And I loved hearing you speak at Spacecom, and I look forward to hearing you again, because as somebody who wants to hire you or learn from you, I'm like, I want people to know her, So you're right. It's almost like doctors that they're worse patients, right? Or the shoemaker who doesn't have, his children don't have shoes. So yes, we're on that same struggle bus together.
Yes. And all of you listening, you are not alone. We feel your pain, and I just pretend that I'm a client, and that's how I get through it. But it is real. Smart words. It is real. And I also look at the end goal. The end goal is for me, is to promote space, to make it to where companies can succeed and the next generation can succeed. So that's ultimately my goal. And if I have to be the vehicle that does it, I reluctantly got on it, and here we go.
So real quick, you talked about how I got to space. Well, of course, the company hiring me is related to space, but coming to Huntsville, I didn't even know what an engineer was. I really thought it was just a trained conductor and engineer. Okay. And my mother tried to educate me because she had relatives from here, and she was like, no, I was like, not a math person. I'm a word person. So when I met my husband, it was right after I saw the movie Apollo 13 that they actually did some filming and training here, right? And I remember the scene where they take all the pieces and parts and they take them to the room with all these engineers and say, hey, figure out how they're going to come home. And I was like, and duct tape and PVC pipe. And I was like, I get it now. I understand. And so again, every time I watch space movies like The Martian and again, some fictional stuff. Well, actually Apollo 13 was a true story, but I just am so fascinated by this place this in our history that we're at, where we have a legacy, but it's scratching the surface. And now we're starting another, and there's so much compared to the internet and computers, where we feel like we've learned a lot. And of course, there's more to learn. Space there's so much more to learn. And to me, as somebody going on 60, I love having new things to learn. I'm excited about the potential for our space industry worldwide. And that's why I'm very excited about going to SpaceCom next in 2 weeks. So.
You mentioned the story, which stories are powerful, so don't discount stories. Stories can make people dream. Stories can make people put together parts and pieces and hoses. And marketing, in a way, is kind of like an engineer. We take parts and pieces and we put them together until they run. So it's just a different kind of parts and pieces. Hold on to your boosters. We will be right back with guest Melody Tholstrup with My Size Marketing after a brief message from our sponsors. Please like and subscribe to the Space Marketing Podcast so you don't miss a thing. Tell us a little bit about your company, My Size Marketing.
So another funny story, I had, again, after I got into the marketing world, and I worked for a lot of small husband-wife teams, agencies, small budding, and then now have grown huge media, internet media companies and a family-owned publishing company. And I loved being part of a team. And I thought, wow, I'm so glad I'm in this part and I'm not in charge because I don't think I could handle that, right? But of course, I was in my 20s and early 30s. So when the opportunity came, and I was working for an agency that had been around 36 years, and I was there for the last 5, and I loved, again, family owned and a wonderful team, and they closed. The owner just decided to retire. The president, who she thought was going to take over, had actually started a side business that wasn't really competing, but she decided she just wanted to do that. She was burnt out. And so we all kind of went, okay, what are we going to do? And I had a client that was a small medical clinic, and they said, you're not going to quit helping us, right? You're still going to take care of us, right? And I said, let me get back to you on that. Sure. And so I nervously went to a local business entrepreneur program that I was already coaching at marketing with, but I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. And I said, can I do this? Do you think I can? And they said, oh yeah, get a good accountant and QuickBooks and, get your business license. And we've got some courses, and they were just so supportive. And I still work with them, and that's been almost 20 years. But I didn't want to be a business owner. I wanted to help people, but I didn't want all the, hard parts that come with that. But the more I got into it, and the more I saw the benefit of being able to not only help people, but not have all the stuff that I used to fight, paperwork and red tape and stuff to do our job. For example, the agency I was at right before they closed was a wonderful, very well-known firm, but we'd have clients or potential clients come in the door and say, we want to hire you, but they couldn't afford us. So as My Size Marketing, I decided that would be my goal. If I was going to start a business, I wanted it to fit that small business who's got to the point where they do need to market, they are growing, they've got a good story to tell, but they can't afford not only an agency, they can't even afford to hire a full-time marketing person. And so that became my sweet spot. And so that's who I've been working for the most part. I've had, like I said, a few other bigger clients, but working with them allows me to stay working with mostly the smaller ones. And I just did a ribbon cutting for a really cool coffee shop, and I worked with a junk removal company in another market. And I get to coach people. I coached a lady who had a gourmet popcorn business up in Virginia. I mean, that's the beauty of video conferencing. So my goal is to help overwhelm small business owners learn how to take their marketing to the next level, but starting at 90 days at a time. Like, we just focus on the first 90 days. What can we do to make that needle move? And work with the budget you have, and work with, the resources you have and the story you have to tell, and not just put it all on social media, but let's look at how can we build your brand? How can we connect you? How can we get you in front of your clients? Maybe it's a trade show. Maybe it's an event. Maybe it's a charitable, partnership. Maybe it's something within your community. I don't know, but it's not all social media, right? I love social media, but it's just a tool, like every other tool we've used.
Yes.
And it's going to change and evolve just like every other tool we've used. And so you've got to have a very well-balanced media marketing plan, no matter what company you're with, no matter what size you're with. The numbers may change, but it's still about where's your customer, your target customer, and how can we reach them in multiple ways to get them, show them how you can provide value to them. And that's what I do.
And one of the things that I stress is that, yes, the tools, they change. They change at a rapid pace. I mean, let's just take the example of Twitter, which is now X, and how that has changed. Yes. There's a lot of people that, love them or hate them. That particular platform has changed dramatically and has changed budgets. So what really is important whenever you're doing any marketing is the relationship you have with your audience. Number one, it does, the tools will come and go. If you are dedicated to having that relationship, then that is what is good marketing. And
what is the saying? People care. Yeah, people care. People only care. I can't think of what the saying is now. People don't care about what you know. They only care if you care, or something like that.
People don't care what you say, people care about how you make them feel.
Exactly. That's it. I think it's Maya Angelou. Yes. Excellent.
Yes. So, and let's talk about conferences. One of the things that COVID really taught us is that, well, number one, the world is open. And it's fabulous. We're talking right now and from both of our homes, and that has been great. And doing online webinars and everything has been great. I'm able to go to things in England and things like that without having to buy a bus or a plane ticket.
Right.
So that has been wonderful. But that physical, in-person conference, there's a part that's missing when you go to an online conference. It's like you get the sessions. You get the what I call the bricks to a building. You get those sessions. You get that information, but it's all the stuff in between, and it's something about that face-to-face, that connection, that almost physical connection when you shake somebody's hand. You cannot replace online. So conferences are huge for building relationships. Last week, you introduced me to our guest for last week. I'm getting confused here because we're recording backwards. So you introduced... So Kevin Brown is the VP at All Points. And do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with All Points? And we're going to really focus on conferences with his particular session.
Yes. So All Points is a company that is a leading solutions provider for a lot of different, tech, engineering, cyber, space launch support, DoD. They have so many smart people doing a lot of wonderful things, and space and NASA and contracts with companies that do business with NASA is obviously a big part of how they've grown in the last 20 years. And Kevin Brown is our Senior Vice President of Business Development, and he is actually based in our Florida Merritt Island office, and he is a go-getter for sure, and is overseeing a really exciting project that he can tell you more about that will be a huge facility that will support space launch services in the area right near Kennedy Space Center. We just did a recent press release. They just completed their site surveys. Things are starting to become real. They've got some exciting partners they're going to be working with, and I believe Space Florida is helping with the financial, because it is going to be such a benefit to the community and the economy. But he has done an excellent job in our space prep division. It's like a whole nother product line for us and a whole nother division, and he runs that. And they're just doing some amazing things and building some really great infrastructure to support space launch for NASA and government, as well as in commercial space industry. So I'm really excited to be working with them on that. And we're going to Spacecom to share about all of that. And we're a platinum sponsor, so I'm very excited.
Yes. So let's go into some of the initiatives that you are promoting with them and what you have taught them to do and why maybe conferences in particular.
Gotcha. So when I first met with All Points 3 years ago, they really were just focusing on growing their Huntsville market, and I, being in Huntsville for 30-something years, was able to easily help them get involved more in the Huntsville business market outside of just their space and NASA connections. And again, like I said, we started becoming the official government contracting sponsor for the Catalyst, which is called the Catalyst for Business and Entrepreneurship. It's an SBA, partially funded and privately funded, huge, wonderful support system for small businesses. And they have a whole government contracting sector, because that's a big, like probably over half of our small businesses are going into government contracting in one form or another. And so after being involved with them myself, and I introduced them to their tech-rich government contracting liaison, I said, this is a no-brainer. We want All Points connected with all this, because we do a lot of mentor-protege projects. We've worked with several, and one, Mission Innovate, is actually, Mission Multiplier was the other partner. They've grown now to the point where they can be, doing subs with people. So it's really been exciting to, and the trade shows they do in Huntsville were kind of my first foray to see what they were doing. And then Spacecom, I got to see, on a bigger level and outside the Huntsville market. But the bottom line is, like you said, with a trade show, it's not just, here's our booth, here's our collateral, here's our video. It's the meetings, the conversations, the wonderful reception we did last year, and I'm excited about this year, where we have, we partner with a couple of different companies and we host, people can come and visit, which I hope you'll come join us. And all those conversations in between, like you said, it's the mortar that puts the bricks together. Because when you can talk to somebody, one thing about business and two about their kids or their favorite food or where to go shop or whatever, you build relationships. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar with the BNI. I used to be in one, and what I loved about their philosophy was, like, know, and trust, right? You start to meet people, you're like, I like that person. Then you get to know them, and then you trust them, and that credibility becomes profitability. And you can't just do that on Zoom, and you can't just do that by email. So I'm thrilled that they get the opportunity, and they're very invested in a lot of different shows of different levels across the country. They're going to the big one in Colorado in the spring, but they do a lot of small things. We support the military at the ones that come in Huntsville. So they get out there, we work the crowds, we talk to people. They get on, like Kurt, who's one of our business development people. He's a former retired colonel. He gets on the committees for the ones in Huntsville. He gets involved. So it's not just us showing up with a booth. We want to get involved. We want to be engaged, because the better the shows are. Cyber Summit's another one we like to host or help host in Huntsville. The more involved we are as a staff, as a team, as a company, the more it grows that support system, right? And then everybody benefits. Our smaller companies, we had a small mentor protege company that spoke at our Cyber Summit. We went and supported them. They had their own booth, so it's just like you said, it's about people, and getting in front of people is just the best way to connect.
And one thing I'd like to note for all those listening out there is that you may not be the biggest. You may not be the best. You may not have the best price. It may be all those things. But if you're likable and people trust you, they will pick you over somebody that is better, cheaper, and, has all the other gadgets and things, because it's about the relationship. And I'm going to make a prediction that this is going to become even more important with AI, because AI, you're able to falsify looks. I mean, I can't tell you how many filters I've seen where people have changed the way they look right there while they're playing with it. Put bunny ears on or whatever.
Yeah, right.
There's just a lot of AI is going to be taking over a lot of stuff, and I think that having
the messaging, right, the words,
yes,
right,
yes. Well, even some of the pictures. I mean, they can make somebody like Donald Trump look like they're talking and saying things he's not.
Right.
So
Right.
I think with that era that we're getting ready to go into, these in-person conferences are going to be even more valuable because it's really hard to fake a real person.
Whew, that's just kind of crazy.
It's kind of crazy. So let's segue into that with, like me, you have watched marketing tools and changed dramatically. Let's just, we've been about it in the industry, enough to see it just flip constantly on its head and change. And so what are some of the marketing challenges you see in the marketing industry as a whole? Just the marketing industry. What are some of the challenges you see?
Well, like I said, social media has been such a boon for so many small businesses because you can create direct line to your customer, especially if you're retail, but you can, put your message out there no matter what the news says or picks up of your stories. I love that. I do love that. But when that's what you're counting on for your lead generation all the time, that's when I get nervous. But again, like I said, I remember when cable TV became a thing. We could buy advertising on cable TV. So, and that was like, oh, everybody's going to do cable because it's cheaper and there's more channels. Well, I mean, now cable and TV had to go to the digital world. So I worked for an internet marketing company that was for our newspapers here in Alabama, and they were part of a family-owned company across the country. And I remember when our little company was selling ads for $500 and the newspapers were making thousands of dollars and we were the redheaded stepchild. Well, times have changed. Our newspaper is not even in existence anymore. And I remember when the building got torn down and I cried. I didn't even work there, but I had friends that worked there. They got jobs, made jobs for themselves, or got jobs other places because they were great writers and editors. But so again, if you have that connection with a customer, maybe email, right? Email has been around a while. And I don't think that's going to go away. So I do talk to my smaller customers about having some kind of email presence, whether it's personal or it's a value service that you provide and share information and things like that, because then you own that email. They can always unsubscribe, but if they choose to subscribe, they're seeing you in their email box. So that's a powerful online tool that I do recommend. But I do tell people, if you can get involved in a local, hopefully industry-related organization, but even just business-related organization and or charity-related organization, building those relationships, you just never know where your next customer or boss or employee is going to come from, right? And I've seen that doing this as long as I have. So I do like email. I think that's a powerful tool. I do like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn has really evolved, and even small businesses can take advantage of that, and even local markets. I see a lot of and once you start liking people's things, you see your local market as well as your industry. So, and you can connect like we've connected directly. So I think LinkedIn does have a lot of things to offer in as far as, especially for free. I mean, obviously they have paid levels, and that can be beneficial if that's what you need, especially for recruitment. But I tell my clients, especially new businesses, I say, if you don't have a logo that really is a good representation of the brand or the emotion that you want your brand to feel, sometimes it's about a pretty graphic. Sometimes it's just about the right title of your business, right? The right name. Right. You get that. It's like naming your baby, right? You want to call it across the yard and like how it sounds. But the right name, the right logo, and a website, right? We can't go backwards. You can't expect to just build a website and then never touch it again. It's like my house. I would love to just not touch a room once I've got it, but unfortunately we have to keep changing. So that I would say if your website's current and your website's interactive and user-friendly, I remember that term when I first started working in the internet world. I was like, what does that mean? But now I get it. And if we're very lazy, short attention span people, the website is you 24/7. And so no matter how small your business is, no matter how big your budget is, there's no excuse nowadays not to have a website that is clean, informative, and you can update yourself on a regular basis and keep the news stories and keep the events that you're plugging in and do the shout outs for your people. And I've even seen companies I had for a while, like a feed directly from my Instagram or my Facebook. And if you're a business, if you're LinkedIn on all the time, have a feed for your LinkedIn. It's a plug-in. It's real easy to do. So there's things to do that don't necessarily cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
most
really
of them, if
great
they're
tip.
WordPress, I think plugins nowadays, everybody's got a plugin. So if I can do it, anybody can, because I'm not
Yes.
tech savvy. But yeah, I think again, trade shows, if you have one in your industry, and if you don't have a trade show, at least a local, like if you're involved as a support for the construction industry or the builders or the realtors, they all have local chapters, right? And if you can't find a local one in your area, join something online or join something for the state, because again, people do business with people they know. And so
Right.
sometimes you have to start small, but or join an organization for your industry that's national, and go and just pay a ticket to go. I always tell people, go
Yes.
check out a trade show first. Check it out, see where the big players are, see where the smaller companies like you would be, find out what the pricing is, because it's going to take you sometimes 2 years to even get a booth, because if it's popular, they've already got it booked out. But can you co-share a booth with somebody? Can you help be a speaker? Can you help sponsor something just to get a presence there? Never be afraid to just start. I always tell people, do your budget as if, right? Go research as if you're ready to spend the money tomorrow for all these marketing things you want. Whether it's signage, whether it's a wrapped vehicle, whether it's a building, start putting on paper, how much is it going to cost for me to have all this stuff and do all this stuff? And when would it ideally be beneficial for me to have it? And if you don't shop now, when you get that influx of money from an investor or a business loan or whatever, or that first customer, you won't be ready to go and pull that trigger. So start researching where you want to be when you grow up, and just get out there and see what it's going to cost, and see what, and talk to the people who are there. What's beneficial to them? You may find that $3,000 booth is not as beneficial as this, $2,500 sponsorship that you don't even have to have a booth for, but you get to be in front of all the people at that breakfast or something. So
Right.
I just start doing the research as if you've got the money, and then when you're ready, you'll find the money.
And right before the chapter that I was referring to earlier is a chapter about that. Is dream big, like you have all the money in the world. Because if you see that there's an item that you're like, oh my gosh, that would be, I really need to go to SpaceCom. That is really where I need to be. Then you can say, how can I go? What do I need? What are some other creative things I can do if the money is not there? Can you speak? Put your, and that's where speaking is so critical. And I know it is the scariest part of our job and our existence, and any marketing is getting up on stage and speaking. But it is so important that you learn how to do it well. And Toastmasters is who I have to thank. I was painfully shy. I'm an introvert pretending to be an extrovert, people, okay?
You do a great job. Fill me.
So go to Toastmasters and get that practice, get that experience, and learn how to public speak. It's like any kind of skill that the more you do it, the better you get. And it'll move mountains for your marketing, and it will save you a lot of money as far as marketing is concerned. So, do that big list and then pare it down, and then figure out how you can creatively get those tasks done without spending money. Or here's one I like to do, is how can we make money at it? So you have this marketing that you want to do. So, okay, now how can it be flipped just a little to where maybe it can provide an income rather than an expense? So that's something I like to play with.
That's smart.
So, all right. Whoop, wrong cursor. So we're going to, we already, the last two questions. Okay. So where do you see the space industry in the next 10 to 20 years?
That's a good question. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm well versed enough to know what that is. I just love everything I'm seeing. Obviously, the elephant in the room, we're disappointed that Space Command is not coming to Huntsville. But I mean, it's a good problem to have that we even have a Space Command. So I'm excited for the country to have that. I'm excited. What I love seeing when I go to these, the agendas and the people that are going to be at these events, it's global. That's what I love about the space industry. Marketing is kind of similar. Like you said, we don't really care where people are from. We just care that they care and that they have a good story, and we want to share that story. During COVID, I joined some networking groups just for podcasting and whatever. I had clients who had podcasts. I was a guest on some podcasts. And it was a really good, really smart girl that was running it. But I met people from all over the world because of the benefits of video conferencing. And we all had the same struggles. And the fact that I gave any nuggets of marketing tips to some of them and they gave nuggets to me about other things, I was like, this is what the space industry is doing. They're, it used to be with Beat the Russians or whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. We're all trying to stay alive when we don't have as many options here on Earth, or hopefully just expand our options here on Earth from what we learn in space. I mean, it just, you watch the space movies, Star Wars and whatnot that are more fictional, but you just think, why can't we have some of that? Why can't we have a global community that is all on the same page? We all want the same things in our lives and our families. We just do it a little differently, have a little bit different food, different little bit climate. But that's the wonderful about space industry is we're all on the same track to get everything that's going up to be successful and support everything and all the research and all the, like you were telling me about those wonderful experiments that the companies in Kentucky were doing for 3-dimensional organ transplant. I mean, that's amazing. I don't care where that's coming from. I'm just thrilled that that's a thing that space is going to be a part of. So I don't know what's coming. I just am excited to see what's coming next. And that's why I'm excited to go to SpaceCom and hear from the experts what's coming next. So
yeah, our as the saying goes, our cup is empty. Yes, and so it is a joy every day to have it filled. And so what thoughts do you want to leave our audience with today? What do you want them to mull over as they go about their day and say, that was pretty interesting?
Well, I hope when I teach anybody, like I said, I've gotten the blessing to teach a lot of different industries and a lot of different people at different levels in their companies, or whether they're the owner or the salesperson or whatever. And I don't care what company you're with or what size you are. If you know what you're doing is going to provide value for the world, whether it's in a small way or a big way, just keep on believing in that and don't give up. And don't ever forget to ask for help, whether you can afford to pay for it or not. There's so many great resources, SBA, different small business support, mentor protege programs that it can change your world. But you have to ask, you have to research. Don't expect it's just because you don't have the money now or you don't have the resources now that it's not there. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because I know I love when people ask me for help, because I love to help. And when it comes to, I'm going into government contracting, I'm going into space, marketing, it's still marketing. What is the story? How did you get to this point with your, with your product or your service that you can, again, offer value? This is just your part of the world, the part of the industry you're targeting. It doesn't matter. People care that you have something to offer and help their company or their industry or their organization or their economy. If they know that story, then everybody wins. Right. And so if your people are your best asset. So if your people get excited about telling your story too, let them get involved in the community. Let them get involved in things. Let them be a representation too of your business. Again, it doesn't matter if it's space or construction or medical. It doesn't matter. If you're there to help the world with your product or service, just keep on going and brag about it like you would your kid who just graduated from kindergarten, right? Don't be afraid to tell your story, but also see how you can help somebody else with what you offer and find out how maybe you can help them. I always try to have a conversation with somebody, and I try not to ever leave it, especially a business conversation, without saying, so what are your challenges? And maybe there's something I can help you with today. Doesn't cost you a thing. Right. Because if I've helped somebody, then I know that they've hopefully gone away to get something better in their organization or their company or their life. And I feel better. And then if that creates a business down the road, great. But I just want to know that whenever I laid down my head for the last time, I've helped as many people as possible. And as a business owner, that you're helping a lot of people if you do your job right. So don't be afraid to ask for help and don't give up.
Great advice. A special thanks to Melody Tholstrup with My Size Marketing for sharing her journey to space. Be sure to check out her links listed in today's show notes. Please like and subscribe to the Space Marketing Podcast to help us get the word out about this incredible industry of space. I hope that you have found this podcast useful for your journey as you reach for those stars.